All right, let's take a look at Burlington. It was actually added to Goldman Sachs' U.S. conviction list. Analysts saying that the company is ideally positioned for today's economy. Meanwhile, Amgen and GLBE Online were removed from Goldman's conviction list. We want to talk about that and more with Steve Kron. He is Goldman Sachs' Director of America's Equity Research. Steve, it's great to have you on. Lots of stocks that we want to get into here, but Burlington really caught our eye just because we talk so much about the consumer, the state of consumer right now, value hunting. I'm curious from Goldman's perspective, why is Burlington so much better positioned than some of the other players within the space?
Yeah, so thanks for having me. It's nice to be back with you guys. As you point out, in this report that we published last week on the update to our conviction list, we did highlight the consumer. We've had a view, and we continue to have this view, that the consumer is well positioned into 2025 from a spending standpoint. It's the linchpin of our macroeconomist, Jan Hatzius's global U.S. GDP forecast, where he looks for 2.5% GDP growth. Consumer makes up 2/3 of the economy, and that's above consensus. Behind that is the consumer being financially sound. You think about easing inflation. You think about strong household balance sheets. Consumers in a really good spot, very good employment data. Consumers in a really good spot to spend. So you think about the off-price retailers. They're in that sweet spot of consumers that are seeking value right now. Also, higher income consumers that are looking to trade down for good brands. And Burlington's been executing really well. So our analyst, Brooke Roach, that covers the stock, has been very positive on this story. She's above consensus on expectations going forward. And they also have some cost discipline in place, so you should see margin expansion there.
I want to flip over to a company that got dropped, and that's Amgen. Can you talk to me about the base case for that?
Yeah, so look, Salveen Richter covers the stock. She's still very positive on Amgen. As we talked about last time we were here, this is a list of 20 to 25 of our top ideas coming out of the research department. We keep this list relatively fluid over time. So there's no change in Salveen Richter's view on Amgen going forward. She's still buy rated on the stock. We just found other opportunities for this list at this time.
And one of the big things that you did highlight here, or just take into account, is the role of the Mag 7 and big tech, especially on the heels of some of the work done by David Kostin. Nvidia is still on that list. When you take a look at Nvidia's role in terms of the broader market, really setting the tone here for the AI trade, what is Goldman's expectation there?
Yeah, so Toshiya Hari covers the stock, still very positive on this. We spoke, the three of us. I talked about how do you really differentiate on a name like Nvidia, right? This is an ideas-driven list where you're presumably finding the best idiosyncratic bottoms-up fundamental ideas. And it's all earnings-driven, right? He has been well above consensus on his earnings expectations and remains well above consensus on his earnings expectations for Nvidia. But your question is broader. You referenced Kostin's work about the market into next year, still looking for nice growth from the Mag 7, but that earnings growth to be less than the delta between the rest of the 493, if you will, to be less than that of what it was in 2024, the current year. So to a degree of maybe 7% outperformance versus 30%ish. And I saw your segment earlier about the broadening out of the market and the earnings expectations coming from others. Our list. And over the last couple of months, we've added 4 mid-cap names to this list. So we're seeing opportunities elsewhere. Last month, we added Meritage Homes, a really nice home builder that's seeing margins improve. And we've added other mid-cap names over the course of the last couple of months because we see that same broadening out taking place.
But in that segment earlier, I talked about how Nvidia is still the superstar of the Mag 7, that the Mag 6 are kind of the ones that are falling off to the sidelines. Is part of Toshiya's view that Nvidia just still has the growth story moving forward, even if it is slowing with profit growth?
It does. Look, we've been in this infrastructure build-out stage, right, of the AI revolution. And certainly there's a lot of demand there. The question that investors are starting to ask, and we're starting to ask, is how does that transition to the application phase? How do companies start to drive revenues from artificial intelligence as opposed to building out the infrastructure and maybe it being more of an efficiency vehicle? And that's the types of questions people are asking. You've seen some early signs coming through in names like Snowflake and names like Salesforce this past quarter, where they're starting to see a little bit of that. But that is the question in the marketplace right now.
Steve, what I love about this note here is it's not only that you're talking about what names have worked, what names you expect to work, but you also dig down into what has changed and also what has not worked. And I'm curious about that last part there, just in terms of what do you think is the biggest investor lesson when you take a look at how the conviction list has performed, what has not worked in the past? Maybe what does that tell us about the setup heading into the new year?
Yeah, look, we try to drive this bottoms up, fundamental driven, sourced by our analysts, selected by a committee in our internal review committee. We are very focused on the earnings revisions, right? The best way to generate alpha is when you are, your work supports differentiated views on the earnings, on the numbers, and the stock should follow. And so the lesson is we're not perfect, right? We get things wrong. And in our report every month, we hold ourselves accountable to 4 relative metrics. We hold ourselves accountable to the number of stocks since inception that have outperformed the market equal weight, because we treat this as every stock equal weighted, versus their own individual GIC sector and versus our broader coverage in the Americas, which is 1,200 stocks. And our performance has been in around 55 to 60% on 3 out of those 4 metrics, market being the one where we're in the lower 50s, and that's driven by the Mag 7, which outperformed the market considerably. And right now we have 1 name on the list.
Outside of the Mag 7, though, you can still play AI. And Toshiya has a stock in here. I'm fascinated by this pick of Teradyne. I know you are not Toshiya, but since we have you here,
right.
Can you talk to me about the inclusion of a name like this and what it tells us either about this company specifically or just more broadly about finding those other ways to play the AI rally outside of those expensive stocks?
We have a couple of names on the list that are playing that AI rally. I mentioned Snowflake earlier as well, and they're software company that is really strong on data and taking structured and unstructured data and helping companies incorporate that, and that's going to play into the AI transition to revenues. But Teradyne is a system-on-chip testing company. And it's not just AI, it's traditional chips that are powering computers and devices as well. And that's more to Toshiya's call on just semiconductors overall. He's been positive on segments, and he thinks that there's more need for testing, quite frankly. And certainly it lends itself as AI continues to grow, there's going to be more need for a business like Teradyne.
So looking at those chips plays beyond just the AI plays. Steve, always great to have you. Thank you so much
for
coming on to talk the conviction list for 2025. We appreciate it.